Long before the rise of elven and human kingdoms, the lands east of the Great Sea were populated by the Gnomes of Mahakam and Tir Toker, considered to be the first people of the continent. In time, they were joined by the Dwarves, a stout, hardy race who arrived by sea, while the people known as Werebubs came to inhabit lands further south. The next people to arrive were the long-lived Anseid, elves sailing white ships during the Age of Migration, roughly 2,000 years before the coming of humans. Engaging in a number of wars with the dwarves, the elves eventually established realms throughout the north, building magnificent palaces of stone and living in harmony with the natural world. Feeling a deep connection to the land and creatures upon it, the elves were fiercely proud of their burgeoning civilization, and so were equally heartbroken when it was lost. The beginning of the end came during the conjunction of spheres, an event which shook the very fabric of their reality when the dimensions of the multiverse connected, allowing creatures and peoples to travel between them, bringing a new energy into the world which could be harnessed into magic. As a result of the conjunction of spheres, many monsters, beasts, and peoples came pouring into the lands of the elder races, like ghouls, graveyears, and vampires, now forced to survive in unnatural environments. It was also after the conjunction of spheres that humans first sailed into the continent, leading the elves to believe they originated from another world which was destroyed. While some went to live further south, the peoples of Dauk and Wasgar came north, settling in the lands later known as Kovir and Povis. Although their peoples did not long survive, some believed they introduced the worship of the goddess Melitele, one of the most widely revered deities in the north. Dividing their history into years before and after a momentous event called the Resurrection, the next wave of human migrants came around 760 AR, when the Nordling people landed at the mouth of the Yaruga River. Once arrived, Jan Becker discovered how to control the force of magic which now inhabited the land, and used it to help establish human settlements. Training others to use this power, they discovered that a chaotic energy existed in all living things, and it could be harnessed into elemental magic. Although anyone could learn to use it, the most powerful sorcerers were those few born with a natural affinity for the practice. Known as a source, they were capable of unleashing extraordinary amounts of energy and required a great deal of training to avoid harming themselves or others. Although humans did not live as long as the elves, they reproduced far faster and in the coming centuries spread across the continent, threatening the borders of their neighbors. Though some elves and men did attempt to peacefully coexist, their cultures were radically different, as humans did not respect their environment and instead tried to dominate it, cutting down forests and wiping out animal populations. Though war inevitably came to the north, the rise of the Nordlings could not be halted, and the elves started to lose territory. Although some tried to heal the divisions between them, like the human mage Creganon of Lud, who married the elven sorceress Lara Doran and had a half-elven child, Ryanon. Yet other humans could not accept this union and murdered both parents, while their daughter was adopted by the Queen of Redania. By the 13th century, the elves lost all their territories, becoming a scattered people, divided into those willing to work in human cities, and rural folk who kept away from others and lived off the land. With Nordlings now ruling over all the northern kingdoms, elves, dwarves, and gnomes became second-class citizens, sometimes used as scapegoats during times of hardship, leading to pogroms, in which they were rounded up and massacred. As the Nordling kingdoms came to dominate the north, the southern half of the continent came under the dominion of the Nilfgaardian Empire, a unified power which expanded beyond their borders to conquer a number of states they converted into provinces. From 1239 to 1257, the empire was under the rule of the usurper, a nobleman who assumed power when he murdered the emperor to implement expansionist policies, which saw them conquer their first northern kingdoms, taking Ebbing, Mecht, Metina, and Nazaire. Although the usurper was eventually overthrown by the rightful heir, Emir Var Emrys, their expansionist policies continued, and he prepared for the next war of invasion. During the early reign of Emir Var Emrys, the remaining northern kingdoms were divided into Kovir and Povis at the end of the world, the Hengforce League, Redania, Kaidwin, Temeria, Aedern, Sidaris, Verden, Lyria and Rivia, Sintra, Sodden, and the island of Skellige. Aiding the northern kingdoms maintain order and peaceful relations were the Brotherhood of Sorcerers, an organization which regulated and oversaw the use of magic in the north. Although humans now dominated the continent and were warring amongst themselves, others inhabited these lands as well, not only the elder races, but also intelligent beings like the dryads of Broculon Forest, female nymphs who seduced males of other species to procreate, and defended their home with extreme aggression, killing almost anyone who entered their realm without permission. There were also the nearly extinct race of unicorns, vampires, godlings, merpeople who lived in the sea, dragons, trolls, and more. Yet there were also more primitive beasts and monsters roaming the continent, leading to the creation of witchers, human boys trained to fight under brutal conditions and use simple magic signs, in addition to undergoing the trial of grasses, a highly secretive ritual which exposed them to dangerous mutagenic compounds. If they survived, they gained superhuman speed, strength, agility, and sensory perception, along with longer lifespans and resistance to disease. After graduating from a witcher school, they went out into the world wielding a sword of steel and another of silver to slay monsters for coin, enduring the scorn and ridicule of other humans, many of whom saw and treated them as freaks and mutants. Love The Witcher or any other series? Then why not check out Audible, where they have the largest collection of audiobooks available. Sign up now and get 1 free audiobook and 2 Audible originals, or else give the gift of membership to someone you know. If you prefer to read your stories, then click on the link to the Kindle Unlimited plan and get access to as many ebooks as you want. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the excellent Witcher audiobooks, narrated by Peter Kenny, including the main novels and short stories which accompany the series. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like youtube.com/soulguidemedical, Fred Heartless, Knight of Iron and Ice, Sir Daeron of House Ashford, Warden of Secrets and Coin, Lord and Protector of Galltown, and the Winter Sorceress, Madam Faith of House Scarisbrick, Lady of the North, and Keeper of the White Cloak. If you'd like to help the channel, go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can sign up and gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and access the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.